Small organizations we work with might only have one hub because that's basically their nice sort of global nav equivalent. But other organizations start to have more as they start to create project centers and things like that, where you want the web parts to automatically filter based on the associated hub relationships or things of that nature.
Lead is a remote-first company based out of Canada.
What makes a world-class Microsoft 365 intranet and digital workplace?
And we'll move on to our next question. So this was hubs within hubs. When and are they a good idea?
Yeah. So first, let me just be clear on, because sometimes people don't know what hubs are. When should we use hubs, right? So let me start from there, just in case people have that background. So hubs are a new concept for modern SharePoint that allows us to have, instead of subbing, like where we have a hierarchy of sites, we hub a site and then it's sort of loosely connected with other sites. It's a really great model because it allows for a lot more flexibility. It's really great for IA. It's great for the search scenarios. It's great for performance. It's good for a lot of reasons. Now, this hub before you sub comment that Microsoft has made for quite a while, we are in full agreement with. In general, we don't ever use subsites. If you're familiar with classic SharePoint, we use subsites. We don't do those anymore. We use hub sites. Now, one of the capabilities of a hub, there's many. One of the capabilities of a hub is that you can actually have a unified search experience. So what I mean by that is if you go and do a search, right, in the top bar, the suite bar, and you're in SharePoint Home, you'll be able to search everything, right? If you're in Office Home, you'll search everything. But if you're in, say, the intranet, you might want to search a subset. Or if you're in the marketing site, maybe you just want to search the marketing site, right? If you're in the project center with all the project sites that are, again, connected to that hub, in the project hub, you might want to only search project documents. So what you can do is you can have that sort of search scope be based on the hub. This is, again, up to you for definition, but generally speaking, that's how people often use hubs. Now, there's other things hubs do. They have a unified navigation, so you can have a navigation design, essentially sort of, it's called a hub nav across all of those. They're not subsites, but across all those sites that are associated with the hub. You can also do things like actually have a permission group applied at the hub and then apply to all those other groups. Again, based on choice and selection, there's lots of governance rules there of how you want to configure it. And then there's a few other lightweight things around, like you associate something with the hub, maybe it changes the branding or the style, or it might apply other rules to it. There's a lot of opportunity there for programmatic rules. So that's hubs in a nutshell. They're really great. We want to do hub before you sub, and hubs having hub relationships is something that has absolute value. It's very useful, but the biggest reason we often encourage people to be careful is that many people create hubs when there's no need for a hub in the first place. So often we think of, oh, I want a digital hub. I want a hub for this, but we don't think of the technical reason why a hub exists. It's just a name for a bunch of features. And if those features don't apply to your scenario, don't create a hub. It's much better to have less hubs for the unified search and other experiences to work in the predictable way that you expect. Now, that said, the way hubs of hubs work is essentially this idea where I'd have a parent hub. Let's use org home for marketing. Like for a very large organization, we have marketing. And then under that, we might have North America marketing, South America marketing, Asia marketing, APAC, whatever the structure is. I'm talking about really big scale, right? And that's where hubs of hubs really make a difference. And what you'd want to do there is you'd want to have a search experience, especially that has sort of a breadcrumb, if you're familiar with breadcrumbs. And that's something that hubs of hubs can do. So here's like a visual example of it, and I'll just paste it in the sidebar. Where you do a search and you want to be able to jump up levels. You're having a shared search scope across those hubs, and so you can search across all those hubs, but actually see where did you originate that search from. Oh, it was within this hub. I actually am looking for marketing. My marketing example is a pretty good one there, because I'm looking for marketing assets actually at an EMEA level, or I'm looking at marketing assets at an org level. So you can just kind of quickly switch up your search context. Now there are more things Microsoft's planning on doing with hubs of hubs based on customer demand. One of the things more recently they added was this ability to have sort of dynamic linking. So on the left rail or in your hub nav, if you're familiar with like hub navigation, that's what I said could be shared across hubs. You could do things like say, okay, show me the associated hubs and associated child hubs. So there's this concept of 3 levels max, top level, I think they call it second level, and then third level. That's it. You can only have that many hubs. So hubs don't go on infinitely. It's only up to 3 levels, and it's specifically for patterns like some dynamic navigation. When I say dynamic, all it really means is if you create a new hub or associate a new hub of a hub, then that link would show up, right? If you have a bunch of child spaces in general, longer term, then those things can be more dynamically shown up in the same unified nav. So it's just to try and solve some of these information architecture and navigation challenges that they have. It doesn't really do much else. Permissions is not something that hubs of hubs do today, as an example, for a variety of really complex reasons. So relatively new. I think it's pretty niche when you'd use it, but hubs themselves are things that you use very frequently. Small organizations we work with might only have one hub because that's basically their nice sort of global nav equivalent. But other organizations start to have more as they start to create project centers and things like that, where you want the web parts to automatically filter based on the associated hub relationships or things of that nature. It's a tricky one because it can get technical. I didn't get into like the weeds of it, I hope, too much, but that's the core answer for that one.
Thanks, Richard. I just had a follow-on question from Victron here, asking around, can you pick and choose what hub features that you'd like to inherit? So yeah, not inheriting the nav menu.
More or less. It's not the most intuitive process, I want to be clear, but yes, kind of, sort of. You can kind of turn off some of them, and then you can kind of, based on like the rules of how, like the great example of is permissions. So you could set it up so I'm going to associate with this hub, or somebody else associates my site with the hub, but I don't have to inherit those permissions. Remember that group of permissions? I might have the option to approve it or decline it, as an example. So they've tried to think of a lot of patterns like that, but it's really, if the organization doesn't know half these features exist, then it's whatever the default is that they've configured it as. Yeah. Great question.